Before we start writing any Playwright automation code, we need to pause and understand few basic concepts. So we look at the Playwright test, right? Here we are seeing this page inside curly braces or browser, right? So where do these things come from? We didn't create them, right? Playwright provides them to us automatically. So let's understand what is the significance of these things. First of all, like before running any test case, right? What we need to do, what is our main purpose? Our main purpose is testing and where we want to run our test cases. We want to run our test cases on some browser, like where we want to click the pages, log into the applications, click buttons, check the text displayed, right? Then do all the validations that we want. But before that, before doing anything, we just need to launch the browser, right? But how do we launch the browser over here, right? Then we open a window in browser, right? Browser is an application. Then there is a window gets open in browser, right? And then that window opens, which we call a browser page or tab in a browser. Then we navigate to a certain URL. But before doing all of this, first of all, we need to launch a browser. So in Playwright, in order to launch a browser, there is something predefined which is called a browser context. Whatever is written inside these curly braces, right here, this is called a browser. And this browser is called a fixture. So fixture is something which is already fixed, like the, what we say is like the environment which is already pre-configured, right? The tool is already pre-configured, and Playwright sets up for your test before it runs and cleans up after you finish your test case. This is just like a rental car, right? When you go to a rental company, you don't build the car yourself, right? You don't fill the gas tank. Everything is ready for you. The same is here. Like here we have these fixtures. First of all the fixtures are to be provided inside curly braces. So here this browser is provided inside a curly braces. If I remove this curly braces, my test won't be able to recognize this fixture, right? Here I simply pass anything that will be considered as a simple string and as an like a string argument that is passed to the method. But it won't do all the tasks that a browser does. Like if I write browser dot new context, right? It doesn't know. It will not recognize. But if I put the same thing inside curly braces here, it will recognize it, right? Now if I write browser dot new context, right? It will recognize this thing, right? Now it knows, okay, this is a Playwright fixture which I am calling. So once we get the browser, we need to set up the new context. What is the context of a browser, right? So whenever we download a browser, suppose I download Chrome on my machine, it is fresh. It has no cookies attached, no URLs, nothing. It is a, you can say, fresh piece, right? Then I add my cookies, then I add my passwords, then it will automatically start fetching those things, right? So that is called the browser environment or the context of a browser, right? So here, like if, like suppose I want to make some changes every time I launch the browser, so I can set up those things over here inside browser options. We will deal this later on. So first of all, we will simply go with just the raw browser, right? So I know I have set the context of my browser over here. I am adding this to a variable, right? Now I have, now that I have the browser with me, I need a page, right? Then you open the tab in browser. So I will say constant page is equals to, right? Then context dot new page. So now my page is launched. Okay. Playwright is all automatically giving me the await keyword over here, right? So why do we need await, right? Let's understand that as well side by side. So if I don't add await or async in my function, it will automatically, you know, start running top to bottom and it won't wait for the context to launch. It will simply open the page. But I want the Playwright to wait on this step until and unless my context is ready. Once context is ready, it will go to this step and then it will wait for the new page to launch. And once my page is ready, then I want to go to a particular URL. So in order to reach from browser, First of all, I need a new context, right? Here I can add my cookies and everything that we will do later on, right? Why we need cookies? Suppose you want to get logged into application, right? Once you log in into application, you need not log in again and again with the cookies. We will understand this later on in the upcoming lectures. Then we need a new page, right? Suppose I open a fresh browser, right? There I need a new page, and then in that page I am navigating to some URL. But here I am not adding any cookies. Then why do I need browser, right? Playwright has pre-provided me something called page fixture. So we can simply use a page fixture over here. Let's write one more test case using the page fixture, right? I simply write page over here, and I need not write these first two steps, right? These are already done in at the background by Playwright for me. So I can simply go to the page and go to the URL, right? And launch my URL or launch my application for the further testing, right? In addition to this, like the browser, right? The browser is the biggest layer. It represents the actual physical web browser application running on my computer, like Chrome, Firefox, or WebKit. That we can also set up over here. Like once we get the browser, then we can set up the browser context, right? Then inside the browser, we have browser context. The browser context sits inside the browser, and it is Playwright's secret superpower. A browser context is a completely isolated session. The easiest way to think about it is like an incognito window. Every single test you run gets its own fresh context. This means cookies, local storage, browsing history are completely separated. And instead of opening a whole new browser application for every test, right, which is very slow, Playwright just opens a fresh incognito session like the context in milliseconds, right? This gives you total isolation between tests with blazing speed, right? So like in Selenium, right, for each and every text, what we need used to do is we used to launch the browser, right? Then browser launch takes a lot of time, right? We have multiple tests to run, right? Suppose we launched, right, in parallel we launched 10 browsers or 20 browsers, right? So those 20 browsers, like once the test is completed, every time a browser launches, it closes, right? It executes, then closes. Launch a browser, open a window, go to URL, do all the tasks, and then it gets closed, right? So this takes a lot of time. But browser context, what is it? So once a browser is launched, right, it runs first test case, right? It gets a new fresh context automatically inside Playwright. It executes the test case. It closes the context. It will not close the browser. Then a new test case comes into picture, right? It then the new test case will run in the same context with the fresh context, right? It will not open a new browser, but gets refreshed, right? So this is what a browser context is. It means the environment of a browser, right? Then we have the page. Finally, the page is the one which lives inside the browser context, and it is simply a browser tab. Like we open our browser, right? We see the browser tab. This is not different than that. This is why you will actually interact with 99% of the time with the page only. When you want to tell your test to go to a website or URL, click on a button, type a username into a form, you will always talk directly to the page object. You won't be talking to the browser. So that's why Playwright simply provided the page for us. So we can simply use it and skip the first setting steps, right? So to wrap it up, just remember this simple chain. First of all, we have the browser, which is the app, right? Browser is app like on our system. Then we have the browser context, right? What is a context? It is the incognito window. Think of it like that, right? For each test case, it a new incognito window or new context opens for us, which is fresh every time, right? Then we have the page inside. Like we have various pages or tabs inside the browser. So you can open multiple pages, right, inside a browser window, right? In total, we have 6 fixtures which we have available in Playwright, but we don't need all of that. Most of the times we deal with page and browser context and browser. The other 3 fixtures are browser name, request, and Playwright. We will deal with them later on, right? The Playwright is the master controller object. We don't need them. The like that is mimicking specific physical devices like iPhone and then running the particular API test cases. So most of the test cases they will only be dealing with page. Like so we have the step npx playwright test to execute the test cases. I will just press enter. It will start executing the test cases. So it is showing running 6 tests, right? But we have only 2 test cases over here. And it is using 4 workers, means running 4 test cases simultaneously. So we will understand all of these specifications, everything, the whole control. Where is it? It is inside this playwright.config.js. Everything in Playwright is controlled from here, like where you want to run the test case, on which device you want to use Firefox, Chrome, or you want to use WebKit, and how many test cases you want to run parallel. Do you want to rerun the failed test cases, right? What is the type of report you want? So we will learn more about this in detail in the upcoming sessions. And the report is ready, like one test case failed with timeout issue, and 5 are passed. So let's click on here. This will show you the report. That's all for it now. Thank you.